The month of October came to a close, so I'm going to rank all the September and October movies that I saw together, ranked from worst to best. Hi, my name is Nathan, and I'd like to talk about a lot of movies on this channel. If you're new here, down below in the comment section, share your ranking of the September and October movies that you saw down below in the comment section. Click the like button if you enjoyed this video, and be sure to subscribe because it really does help a lot, and it's very much appreciated. And with all that said, explaining why I couldn't do my September movies ranking is because at the time I wasn't feeling very well. I was sick for like the first half of September, as well as a little bit in October, and so I need to catch up on some movies. Big one being Joker 2, which I have still not seen Joker 2, so I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen Joker 2, so down below in the comment section, share that in your ranking as well. But of these 12 movies, these are just the movies that I saw in the month I was able to see in September and October. And since I haven't seen much in October, I just decided to throw them in here. With all that said, let's just get straight into the ranking. In last place, MegaFLOPolis. This is a film that was in development for 40 years, and it is just an embarrassment. Francis Ford Coppola, the director and writer of this film, started developing this project back in the late 70s, and it started getting in development in the writing process in 1983. So he's been writing this movie for literally 40 years. And finally, he self-financed it, took $120 million straight out of his pocket, shot it, released it, and he had to pay Lionsgate to distribute it because no studio would distribute his film, so he had to actually pay the studio to do that. And it's kind of an embarrassment for him. No offense towards Francis Ford Coppola. He's directed some absolute classics. Of course, Godfather, Apocalypse Now. But this is not a good movie at all. Now, as for me, it definitely falls under that so bad it's good category, where I went in expecting this film to be boring. Actually, it's one of the most entertaining films I've seen this year because it's absolute ludicrous from beginning to end. There are some absolutely bonkers, ridiculous performances all throughout the film from like Shia LaBeouf and even Adam Driver in some scenes. There are some bonkers scenes and sequences. The goofiest sex scene of the year is contained in this movie. A goofy auction is held in the middle of like an arena race while a party is going on. Adam Driver is getting drunk, and it's all intertwined together. It's just absolute insanity in this movie. And the lines of dialogue are also really, really bad and laughable.
So go back to the club.
Oh, wait, you serious? Let me laugh even harder.
The plot jumps around so much. It's so messy. There's some setups and plots. There's this thing about Adam Driver being accused of molesting an underage girl. That's a plotline for like 5 minutes. There's other stuff about like this rivalry between him and Giancarlo Esposito that gets totally lost in the mix. Like, I could go into really in-depth about how bonkers ludicrous this movie is, but I'm going to keep this short and brief. It's a very bad movie, but a very entertaining bad movie at that. It's just an embarrassing film for Francis Ford Coppola to have put out, especially since he worked on it since 1983. Number 11, Subservience. This is one where I kind of had the opposite experience of MegaFLOPolis when I did as opposed to Subservience. MegaFLOPolis is a film I went in expecting it to be sort of like a boring, pretentious film, and ended up being a so bad it's good, entertaining film. With the premise of this movie, I expected it to be a so bad it's good, entertaining film, and I watched it, and it ended up being not nearly as fun as I was expecting, and kind of boring. So, with Subservience, you get basically an R-rated Megan knockoff, where it's about a guy who buys an AI robot to kind of do things around the house, and he does some questionable things with this AI, to say the least. And when you watch the trailer, I think you'll understand what I'm talking about here, but I expected it to be a sort of a fun bad movie, and it's not nearly as so bad it's good as I was expecting. part of that is because I think it takes itself way too seriously for some of the goofy sequences in this movie. And it takes itself like it's way too seriously, way too much with a straight face. And that just kind of made the movie feel kind of bland. And it didn't pop as much for me. It wasn't as memorable given the ridiculous premise that it has. And it also felt like it had some commentary to it for a direct-to-video movie. It felt like it was trying to convey some commentary that I didn't think needed to be there about, like, there's a whole plot line about AI coming to replace some of the workers at their job at a construction site, that it feels like it's trying to comment on something when you're watching a ridiculous movie about a guy that does kinky stuff with an AI and the AI goes haywire. So one that, like, I think it's more competent than MegaFLOPolis, thus it's slightly above MegaFLOPolis, but not nearly as fun as MegaFLOPolis. And so these two are really kind of tied for last place for me. Number 10, Hellboy, the Crooked Man. This is the new Hellboy film that I'm pretty sure absolutely nobody knew existed and came out. It's another one of these direct-to-video films, much like Subservience. I tend to typically go easier on these direct-to-video films because they are limited. They're not theatrical release. They're not theatrically released. They have a limited budget. But if I watch this movie having not known the budget for it, I would just assume it's a low-budget direct-to-video film trying to be a Hellboy film. However, the reported budget for this movie is $20 million. And that's a little bit strange to me because some of the visuals don't particularly look good in this film for a $20 million budget. And I get that $20 million doesn't seem like a lot, but keep in mind, Godzilla Minus One last year was made for the equivalent of $15 million US dollars. So, keeping that in range. This is a movie that doesn't really have the best effects. It very much is. I appreciate that it's trying to be a different take on Hellboy, as he's much more of a detective more than like an action guy. And I don't really like that, because there's not a ton of action, and the action that is present isn't very memorable or interesting. The setting is kind of just like bland. It's in the middle of like a forest with dead trees everywhere, cabins in the middle of woods. It's not very interesting and very forgettable. I watched the movie about 2 weeks ago and I forgot what the plot was about, other than the stuff about crooked men. I pretty much forgot what the plot was about. So it's harmless enough, but very forgettable direct-to-video Hellboy film. Number 9, Never Let Go. This is the new Halle Berry horror movie that came out. It's directed by the director of The Hills Have Eyes. I have not seen The Hills Have Eyes. I don't think I've seen this director's previous films. So I went into this movie pretty much because my father insisted we go see this movie because it came out on my birthday. My birthday was September 20th. And I wanted to see Transformers 1, but my dad did not want to see a kid's movie that was Transformers. So we ended up seeing Never Let Go. And it's simple, straightforward enough for the first half. Sticks exactly to the premise that it's given about like a mom and her 2 sons trying to survive this seeming apocalypse. And because of that, it is kind of bland for the first half. Well, once again, just like Hellboy, it is set in a forest. Not the most interesting environment. Doesn't appeal to me that much. The second half brought a little bit more intrigue. Something happened in the middle of the movie where I thought the movie picked up very much so. And Halle Berry does give a solid performance when she is on screen. And after viewing it, when me and my father and my brother had a conversation about the film in the car on the way home, it was more interesting than it was at like face value. So, but it just left too many things ambiguous for me to actually care what happened in the film and what the interpretations actually mean. So, just a film that it's another one's harmless, but not one that I'd ever rewatch, not one that I'd ever like fully recommend to others. Number 8 is Smile 2. From here on out, I would say that all the rest of the movies on this list I would go positive on. I would recommend Smile 2 and every other movie above it. Smile 2 is very much a mixed positive for me, which might be a really hot take because I hear a lot of you guys actually love this movie. It's better than the original Smile to you guys. And I'm a little bit on the contrary to that. So, this film is a decent follow-up to the original Smile, I would say. It is a good movie. It's a good follow-up to the first film. What it does with the camera usage and how it frames its shots, it stands out exactly the way that the first film's camera usage stood out. It has this great cold open that's like one take. I love it when movies do that, and so that was the best part of the movie actually for me, was the cold open. Just like the original Smile, it does a great job of having really tense sequences, actually effective jump scares. But this is a film that I found inferior to the original film. Part of that is because, let's start with the ending. It's kind of like a WTF ending. Like I didn't get into the ending. I thought it kind of soured me on the film. Also, the lead character, Naomi Scott, while she delivers a good performance in the film, the character that is written is not one that I particularly related to. I'm just gonna try to get into spoilers. So screw it. Let's just go into spoilers. Her backstory, I couldn't necessarily connect to because she was a drug addict and she killed her friend in like a car accident, and I don't relate to that. It doesn't make her look likable or anything like that. And the line, I would say, between reality, what's a fabrication, from the entity, what's reality, it's just totally lost in this movie for me. And I know that's probably intentional, because this movie's trying to give out the sense that a character is losing her sanity, but I just didn't... it was more confusing to me what was real and what was not, and I guess that was intentional, but I certainly didn't really like that. And so, a good film, I didn't like it as much as the original, or as much as a bunch of you guys probably did. Beetlejuice. This is a movie that I will, from here on out, actually, I would go positive on these movies. Smile 2 is much more mixed positive. Beetlejuice 2, I can safely say, I recommend this movie. I think this is a good movie. So, as for me and my relationship with Beetlejuice, I have absolutely no nostalgia for Beetlejuice.
The juice is loose.
I didn't watch the first film until about a week before this movie came out, and so thus my expectations were quite low because I'm not even a big fan of the original Beetlejuice. I don't really think that's a good movie. Hot take, but I just don't think it's very good. Thus, I had low expectations going into Beetlejuice 2, and I thought it was a vast improvement upon the original. Simple reason, Beetlejuice is much more prominent in this movie than he is in the original. In the original, Beetlejuice is very much a side character in his own movie. Here, he's much more prominent. He's one of the bigger supporting characters in the film, so it felt a lot more like a Beetlejuice movie. It felt a lot more like I got what I signed up for. Also, it had a better story to me that had forward momentum. Like, you cared about what was going to happen next, and there were actual twists and turns in the middle of it that actually made the story, kept me engaged in the story and made it move forward. Where I think this movie fumbles a little bit is that the plot itself isn't very memorable. It's very underdeveloped, I would say, undercooked. And the character work is a lot more prominent, and I think it's a bit overshadowing what the main plot of the film actually was. Like, with Jenna Ortega's character, Winona Ryder's character, the character work and their relationship and their history, much more prominent than the actual plot. So I found that part much more memorable. And so it's just not a very memorable film. But that's coming from someone who's not really a big fan of Beetlejuice anyway. But solid sequel that I think improved upon the original. Number 6, Piece by Piece. This is the new Lego movie. It is Universal's first Lego movie after they bought acquisition to the Lego movie franchise. And it's a very strange Lego movie. I went in very skeptical about this one because when it first got announced, when I first found out about it earlier this year, I was like trashing on this movie, like, what are we doing here? Like, what are we doing? The trailer absolutely did not win me over. Basically what this is an animated Lego animated documentary about Pharrell Williams. Very strange movie to be in the Lego movie universe. But I'll tell you, as a Lego documentary about Pharrell Williams, it's pretty good. Because it's in Lego form, it uses that to its advantage to kind of visualize much more how Pharrell Williams visualizes music. And that definitely stood out to me. It's something you can't do with a normal documentary in live action. So I thought that worked really well, and it was actually a clever way of using Lego in a documentary. And it also follows an effective enough template. It follows that biopic template about how somebody found what they're good at, their rise, their short downfall, and their rise again. Kind of follows that formula, but it's a very safe formula, but it works in this movie. And once again, not one I'd re-explore very often, but a good Lego documentary. Here's a hot take, kicking off our top 5, Venom 3: The Last Dance. Now, I was a couple weeks late to this movie. As of the day I'm shooting this, I only saw the movie yesterday. So, I don't, I enjoy these movies. And I like Venom 3 the best of the 3 movies. And, yeah, I know a lot of people are saying it's the worst of the trilogy and all that stuff, but I liked it. I had fun watching this movie, and I was in a packed theater. These movies are actually more popular than you might seem, because I saw it yesterday. Today is, I'm reading the date, November 11th. I saw it yesterday, November 10th. So, and I was in a packed theater. So these movies are still popular. They still get enough enjoyment out of people that should go out and see them. And I still think that this movie has the charm and a little bit more to offer than the first 2 Venom movies. Eddie and Venom have just so much chemistry in these movies, and it's still just as good as ever in this film.
We are Venom! No. Oh, yeah.
But I would also say it has the strongest action sequences and sort of the strongest, flair to it. Because the first 2 movies are only set in San Francisco. This one's a lot more globe-trotting, so there are more interesting settings here with where action sequences take place. It pops out more than it did in the first 2 films. It's the largest in scale of the 3, and I think it sets up and pays off lines better than the first 2 films did. And because it's the last film in this trilogy, as somebody who saw all 3 of these movies in the theater, I liked what they did to close off the Venom character. It has this heart, this emotional core to it, where there are scenes set up previously where they're like sitting down with a family, just being normal people. Pays off perfectly fine for me in the final bits of it. And it gets a little sappy, it gets a little emotional. Like, I felt something sitting down there, like, damn, like, I'm feeling emotion in a Venom movie. And that's something I definitely did not expect. The movie, it's not perfect. I gave it a B in my review. It has very sloppy writing. The writing here, where, like, Null barely appears in the movie. Also, like, the inciting incident to why the final battle is able to happen is very, very lazily put together. And also, I think the setup and payoff to the plot itself doesn't work very well. There's this whole slam bang finale with the symbiotes, and some of this, I think they waste some of the potential with that. But still, as somebody that I'm a little bit more biased towards these Venom movies, I enjoyed Venom 3. So fight me. Number 4, Salem's Lot. Now, this is a movie I went in with very, very, very low expectations. This is a movie they shot back a few years ago, and they just shelved it for so long, and kind of like the week before it came out, they're just like, oh, let's just drop it on HBO Max. It's the Stephen King adaptation of a book that he did. And so my expectations are very, very low going into this, and it surprised me. I enjoy this movie. And it doesn't help that I didn't watch it in the best context. I went to a confirmation retreat a couple weeks back, and on the bus right over there, I watched it with AirPods on my phone. So I didn't even watch it in the best context, but I still thought I had a fun time with this film. It's very much like a kind of a throwback to cheesy 80s horror movies, where it's a cheesy vampire movie. Kind of like that. It's just, but it's a good one of those. And it's very cheesy, it's gory at times, which I'm all for violence in movies. The vampire action sequences, there's actually quite a bit of world building about this town. I think it's from the writer of It, and I can feel a little bit of that It flair. Not nearly as good as what It did, but this movie was an effective enough at that. The script itself doesn't do a very good job of like setting up and paying off some of the stuff with the characters in particular. It doesn't do a very good job at that. But if you're looking for like a streaming movie that's part of your convenience, just like a solid middle B movie that's fun, I suggest watching Salem's Lot. It's a fun, solid B movie, cheesy vampire movie. And then we have A Different Man that kicks off our top 3. Now, to be clear, there's a pretty big gap from Salem's Lot to A Different Man. There's a gap. Because A Different Man, I think, is a very, very good film. Actually, these top 3 are all very, very good movies. They're all probably my top 20 of the year, somewhere like that. But these are just really good movies. And so this movie is one that stars Sebastian Stan. And it is about a man that has a face... has a deformed face. He has this condition that makes his face look like the way it does in this film, and he undergoes a surgery where all of the deformities disappear, and he's able to finally find confidence now that he's basically taken this new identity. He wasn't proud of what he was before, but then through this thing with a play in the middle of it, he meets this other guy that he has all the things that Sebastian Stan ends up having, but without the surgery. He has the same face condition that he has, but he has confidence. And he's not insecure like Sebastian Stan was. And so it's kind of this interesting and compelling character study about identity. Like, are you proud of the person that you are? And that was very interesting and compelling. Great performance from Sebastian Stan in particular, but even some of the side characters are great performances for what they're going for. Very much a slower paced drama. I wouldn't gravitate to rewatch it. And I also thought in the final 20 minutes of it, it didn't land the ship fully. It kind of lost me for like how far Sebastian Stan's character, how insecure he ends up going in the final 20 minutes of it. I didn't fully buy into it. And like the final scene, there were some lines of dialogue that made me question some things. But overall, a really, really solid drama. If you want a slower paced drama, check out A Different Man. Our runner-up is The Wild Robot. Now, this is a film that every single person has been absolutely raving about. Another one I was a bit late to because I was sick. But I saw it, and it's just an old-fashioned, wholesome family film. It's a great movie to just take the whole family to, get real sappy. Because this movie explores... the themes of this movie are so profound. It's about parenthood and finding family. You get a robot placed in the wilderness, and it plays with the themes about what would a robot do in the wilderness, but it's also about this robot that finds a family. And even some of the side characters kind of have that same exact arc where this fox, voiced by Pedro Pascal, he also kind of finds family. And she raises this bird whose family she killed, but he also finds family in these characters. And the characters themselves are just so charming. It's so fun. And it finds so much humanity in characters that aren't human. So I thought it was just really, really well done. It's such a profound arc to give these characters by the time it comes full circle you get in the end. Now, this is a film that everybody's been raving about, calling it the best animated movie of the year. I'm not too crazy for it. Not one I'm going absolutely raving about, but it is a really, really good film. But for me, in first place is Transformers 1. Now, this was the movie that I wanted to watch for my birthday, but we saw Never Let Go. And we saw this movie a couple days later when we had the time. Finally, I was able to go see Transformers 1 on September 22nd, 2 days after my birthday, but I would still consider it my birthday movie because it came out on the day of my birthday, and it's a pleasant birthday film. Probably said the word birthday too many times in that sentence, but this to me is easily the best Transformers film they've ever released. I was just like amazed about how much I enjoyed this movie because I've never really been a Transformers fan. I would say this is like an amazing, amazing Transformers film where, simple reason, it focuses on the Transformers. It's not about a human with the Transformers as side characters. It's set fully on Cybertron, exploring the Transformer world. The characters given, young Optimus Prime, young Megatron, are so compelling, and it draws out big emotions from you. It's kind of like a mix of Revenge of the Sith and a little bit of Captain America Civil War, especially when you get to like Megatron's character. This is villain origin story. You realize he's not as bad. He's not like pure evil. He has reasons. He's well-intentioned, but he has reasons for the things that he does in this movie, and it creates this morally conflicting film. And I just thought that was so well done. It can be really fun. It can be family entertainment, but it's also a tragedy.
I am Megatron! Arise!
Optimus Prime.
And a very effective one at that. And just as a Transformers movie, even as somebody who's not a big fan of Transformers, delivers so much fan service moments and spectacle even while being animated, and still is a film that's worth seeing in the theater. Now, tonally it might be different from the Michael Bay films, but if you just accept this film as a Transformers prequel, as an origin story to Optimus Prime and Megatron, it's a really, really good movie. It's not just a great Transformers movie, it's just a great movie. So for me, of the movies in September and October, this is the one I derived the most enjoyment out of, so it's my favorite movie of September and October. There you have it. That's my ranking. Down below in the comment section, share your ranking of the September and October movies that you saw over on my channel. I have more content like this. Check those out right now. Thank you guys so much for sticking around to the end, and I will see you in the next one.